The billion-dollar mind trick everyone falls for how to use it. Why you're the perfect target and don't even know it. In 1990, two men dressed as cops walked into Boston's Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum and walked out with $500 million worth of art. To this day, the FBI offers a $10 million reward for information. But here's what nobody tells you. That wasn't the greatest heist in history. The greatest heist is happening right now inside your mind, and you don't even realize it. You've been programmed to fail. Society sold you the lie that success is about luck, timing, and having the guts to wing it. While you believe that garbage, the real masters of power are applying Law 29 of the 48 Laws of Power. Plan all the way to the end. And they're not just stealing money, they're stealing your future. Think about it. When you see a billionaire like Elon Musk announce he's buying Twitter, do you think that was an impulse decision? That he woke up one morning and thought, up 44 billion today. If you believe that, you're exactly the type of person power masters love. Predictable, impulsive, and easily manipulated. Here's the brutal truth. Your ambition without planning isn't courage, it's self-destruction in slow motion. Every time you act on impulse, every time you go with the flow, every time you trust luck, you're being a pawn in someone else's game. And the worst part, you don't even know you're playing. The real criminals of power don't wear masks or carry guns. They use something far more lethal: predictability. They know exactly how you'll react before you even know it yourself. While you're busy being authentic and spontaneous, they've already calculated your next 10 moves. Here's the difference between you and a power master. You think about winning the next game. They've already won the next 50. You plan for next week. They plan the next decade. You react to circumstances. They create circumstances. Law 29 isn't just about planning, it's about total psychological dominance. When you plan all the way to the end, you're not just preparing for success. You're becoming someone others can't read, predict, or manipulate. You become the ghost in the game, the variable nobody can calculate. But here's what'll shock you. Most people are afraid to plan all the way to the end. You know why? Because it requires facing the brutal reality that your current success might be an illusion. It requires admitting you might not be as smart as you think. And that hurts. Average people plan not to fail. Masters plan for others to fail. That's the difference between playing not to lose and playing to completely dominate. The system wants you reactive, emotional, and desperate. It wants you checking your phone every 5 minutes, scrolling through feeds designed to make you feel inadequate, buying solutions to problems you didn't even know you had until some algorithm told you. While you're trapped in this cycle, the masters are operating on a completely different level. They're not watching the news, they're making it. They're not following trends, they're creating them. They're not reacting to market changes, they're engineering them. This isn't conspiracy theory nonsense. This is how power actually works in the real world. If you made it this far, it's because something inside you recognizes the truth. You feel like you've been the pawn in someone else's game. For the next 3 days, I challenge you to do something 99% of people lack the balls to do. Plan a situation all the way to the end. Could be a presentation, a negotiation, even a difficult conversation. But don't stop at "it'll work out." Plan every objection, every possible outcome, every move your opponent might make. And get ready to feel what real power feels like for the first time in your life. Comment "Master" if you accept this challenge, but only if you're actually ready to abandon mediocrity forever. The mental weapon billionaires use against you. Steve Jobs never improvised a presentation in his life. Every pause, every gesture, every "one more thing" was rehearsed hundreds of times. While the world applauded his spontaneous genius, he was executing a script more precise than a surgeon's. And you still think winging it makes you look more authentic. The difference between an amateur and a master isn't talent. It's the ability to turn chaos into predictability for themselves, while keeping everyone else in the dark. This is what I call asymmetric information dominance, and it's the most lethal weapon in any truly powerful person's arsenal. Want to know why you feel anxious before important meetings? Why your heart races when you need to make tough decisions? It's because you're operating in the realm of uncertainty. While real players already know the outcome before the game starts, Think about the greatest heists in history, not just robberies, but corporate takeovers, winning political campaigns, relationships that last decades. What do they have in common? None were based on luck. All were based on what masters call the theater of inevitability. Here's how it works. While everyone else is reacting to events, the master already orchestrated those events. He's not playing the same game as you, he created a different game where only he knows the rules. And the most sinister part, he made you believe you're playing on equal terms. Prediction isn't about guessing the future. It's about creating so many scenarios that the future becomes irrelevant. It's about having plan A, B, C, D, through Z. While you're hoping your plan works, the master already has 26 routes to victory. But here's what'll blow your mind. Real masters don't just plan their own moves. They plan other people's moves. They know how you'll react to plan A before you even know plan A exists. This isn't coincidence, it's psychological engineering with military precision. The world is full of people who mistake activity for progress, movement for direction, but being busy for being productive. These people are fuel for real strategists. Their predictable emotions, their standardized reactions, their calculable fears all become data the master uses to script their defeat. Coldness isn't the absence of emotion, it's total control over it. When you can keep your mind clear while everyone around you is losing theirs, you're not just gaining an advantage, you've become the storm that sets everyone else's emotional weather. Want to see this in action? Watch how elite negotiators operate. They never make the first offer. Why? Because whoever speaks first reveals their position. While you're trying to be fair and transparent, they've already mapped your needs, your limits, and your weaknesses just by observing your behavior. This is why most people feel like they're constantly playing catch up in life. They're not behind because they're stupid or lazy. They're behind because they're playing a reactive game in a proactive world. They're bringing emotional responses to analytical battles. They're showing up to gunfights with knives. The masters understand something that completely escapes chronic losers. Information is power, but asymmetric information is absolute power. When you know something your opponent doesn't, you're not just ahead, you're operating in a different reality entirely. Here's an exercise that'll change how you see the world. In your next important conversation, I want you to stop trying to impress and start collecting data. Watch the person's breathing patterns, the words they repeat, the moments they look away. Don't respond immediately, process first. And watch how this transforms your ability to influence any situation. If this scared you or excited you, comment predator, because that's exactly what you're becoming. A predator of patterns, a collector of human weaknesses, a master of other people's predictability. The fatal mistake that destroys even the most powerful. Napoleon dominated Europe, but died exiled on a miserable island. Howard Hughes built an empire, but spent his final years hiding in hotel rooms, terrified of his own success. Both made the same fatal mistake that's destroying your life right now, and you don't even realize it. The mistake wasn't ambition, it was not knowing when to stop. And if you think this doesn't apply to you because you haven't made it yet, prepare for a brutal revelation. You're already making this mistake in small battles every day. And that's why your life feels like an endless war against an invisible enemy. Law 29 has a second face nobody tells you about. Plan all the way to the end, includes planning your own exit. Amateurs fight to the death. Masters fight until victory, then they stop. That's the difference between building an empire and becoming a tragic legend. You probably know someone who never gives up. Society taught you to admire this person. But I'll tell you a dark secret. This person isn't determined, they're stupid. They're confusing stubbornness with strategy, obsession with focus, and self-destruction with heroism. Here's a truth that's going to hurt. Half your current problems exist because you didn't have the balls to abandon battles you couldn't win. That toxic relationship you fought to save. That job that was killing you, but you weren't a quitter. That project that devoured years of your life because you'd already invested so much. Real power masters understand something that completely escapes chronic losers. Every strategic no is actually a yes. to something bigger. Every calculated retreat is an investment in future victory. Every battle you choose not to fight is energy preserved for the war that actually matters. But here's where it gets interesting. Strategic retreat isn't about weakness. It's about absolute power. When you have the discipline to abandon a losing battle, you demonstrate something that terrifies your enemies: total emotional control. You show you're not a slave to past decisions or a prisoner of your ego. Think about Jeff Bezos leaving Amazon at the height of success. Think about any CEO who sold their company at the perfect moment. They didn't leave because they were failing, they left because they had vision enough to see beyond the current horizon. While everyone was looking at what they were gaining, they were calculating what they could lose by staying. The genius of strategic retreat is that it transforms you from player to referee of your own destiny. You stop reacting to events and start orchestrating them. You stop being hostage to circumstances and become the architect of them. But pay attention. There's a massive difference between strategic retreat and disguised cowardice. The coward abandons when things get tough. The master abandons when victory becomes impossible, or when the price of victory exceeds the value of the prize. One acts from fear, the other acts from cold mathematics. The world is full of business graveyards filled with people who never gave up. Blockbuster never gave up on physical rentals. Kodak never gave up on film photography. Nokia never gave up on regular cell phones. They all died hugging their convictions, applauded by society until the last second before collapse. American culture especially glorifies the never quit mentality. We worship the entrepreneur who mortgages their house for the third time, the athlete who plays through injury, the employee who works 80-hour weeks. But here's what they don't tell you: for every success story, there are thousands of destroyed lives that follow the same or quit philosophy. The masters know something different. Sometimes, the greatest demonstration of power is having the courage to let go of what no longer serves, even when everyone tells you to keep fighting. Now comes the painful but necessary part. Make a list of 3 things in your life you're fighting to maintain, but deep down you already know are lost causes. Could be a project, a relationship, a career, a habit. Then ask the question masters ask: if I abandon this today, what would become possible tomorrow? If you had the guts to make that list, comment abandon, because sometimes the greatest show of power is having the courage to drop what doesn't serve anymore, even when everyone says to keep fighting. How to become the most dangerous person in the room. There's someone in your life who, for some reason, always gets what they want. They're not the smartest, not the hardest worker, not even be the most charismatic. But there's something about them that makes everyone, including you, behave differently when they're around. You feel it, but you can't explain it. Today, you'll discover their secret, and you'll never be the same person again. This person has mastered what I call the trinity of absolute power: obsessive planning, cold execution, and calculated retreat. These aren't 3 separate skills, they're 3 faces of the same psychological weapon. And when you combine them, you don't just become more efficient. You become a force of nature that reconfigures reality around you. Obsessive planning doesn't mean making endless lists or perfect schedules. It means developing the ability to see patterns where others see chaos, to identify opportunities where others see problems, to calculate probabilities where others see luck. It's like having X-ray vision of reality. Here's what'll shock you. Truly powerful people never improvise. Not even in casual conversations. That spontaneous response that impressed you, it was mentally rehearsed hundreds of times. That intuitive decision that changed everything, it was the result of analysis you can't even imagine. Cold execution is what separates dreamers from achievers. It's not about having no emotions, it's about not being their slave. When you can keep your mind operational while your world is collapsing, when you can make database decisions while everyone around you is reacting from fear, you become unbeatable. But here's where it gets diabolical. Combining these 3 skills creates an effect psychologists call invisible authority. People start treating you differently without knowing why. They start asking your opinion, seeking your approval, behaving differently in your presence. You didn't change what you say, you changed how you think. Calculated retreat is perhaps the most powerful of the 3, because it's the most counterintuitive. While everyone's fighting to win every battle, you choose which battles to fight. And that choice, that ability to say strategic no, is what gives you real power over your own life. Now comes the part that'll transform everything. When you combine these three forces, you stop playing the same game as everyone else. You create your own game, with your own rules, where you always have the advantage. It's not cheating, it's mastery. Think about how a chess master operates. They're not just playing against you, they're playing against all possible versions of you for the next 15 moves. They've already calculated your reactions to their reactions. While you're thinking about the next move, they already know how the game ends. This is your new reality. You stop being reactive and become proactive. Stop being predictable and become inevitable. Stop waiting for things to happen and start making things happen. The world stops being something that happens to you and becomes something you happen to the world. In America, we're conditioned to believe that success is about hustling harder, networking more, or having better ideas. But the real secret is simpler and more terrifying. Success is about operating at a higher level of strategic thinking than everyone around you. It's about being the chess player in a world of checkers. Players. The most successful Americans, from Warren Buffett to Oprah Winfrey, don't just have good ideas. They have systems for implementing those ideas that are so sophisticated, so well planned, that failure becomes nearly impossible. They've engineered luck out of the equation. Now comes the moment of truth. Every day, for 5 minutes, before any important battle, you'll do the Predator ritual. First minute, visualize all possible scenarios of the situation. Second minute, identify weaknesses and patterns of people involved. Third minute, define exactly what outcome you want to achieve. Fourth minute, choose which battle you will not fight today. Fifth minute, enter cold execution mode. No emotion, just results. This ritual isn't just preparation, it's transformation. Every time you do this, you're reprogramming your brain to operate at the level of true power masters. If you have the balls to implement this for 30 consecutive days, comment complete transformation, but be warned, after this, there's no going back. You'll never be able to be the ordinary person you were before, and your level of power will scare even yourself. The game has changed. The rules have changed. And now, you've changed. Hit that like if this journey destroyed your old beliefs about power. Share this with someone who still believes success is luck. They'll hate you today and thank you in 5 years. And subscribe, because what's coming next will make this content look like child's play. Welcome to the upper echelon. Welcome to absolute power.